Hello everyone, and welcome to the YERME interview series. Today I have a pleasure to introduce Michiel Veldhuis, who is the ERME board member. Very welcome, Michiel.
Thank you, Dorota.
I also welcome you on behalf of myself and the YERME representatives, Dylan and Luca. First part of the interview is to introduce Michiel's career path. So between 2011 and 2015, Michiel was conducting his PhD study in mathematics education at Utrecht University. And after that, in the period of 2015-2020, Michiel had a postdoc position at the Department of Pedagogical and Educational Science at Utrecht University. Since 2018, he has been working as mathematics teacher, educator, and researcher at Hagel School in Amsterdam. During a period of 2019 and 2022, Michiel was leading a project called Panama, which at Fraudenhall Institute at Utrecht University, which is gathering researchers in math education. Since 2022, he is working as assistant professor in mathematics education at Fraudenhall Institute at Utrecht University. So as you can see, Michiel has been working at the Utrecht University for quite many years since his PhD project, but also been part of different institutes and departments. And as we learn, Michiel is from 2023, a co-founder and co-member of the National Expertise Center in Mathematics Education. And Michiel will give us a bit more insight about this project. This project has been just founded by the National Research Council and will work with teachers, educators, and work with support, with new pedagogical ideas, and so on. So Michiel will give us a little more insight about it a bit later during the interview. One very important part of Michiel's work is also that he is an ERME board member and has also a function as secretary. And he been elected during the ERME conference in Utrecht. He also has been a member of the International Program Committee for ERME 12, which was held in Bolzano, Italy, at that time online. And Michiel also supported the young researchers as being a member of an international program committee for YERME Summer School in Linz, Austria. So Michiel have been doing a lot of work which is connected to the ERME and also to work with the young researchers. I will also give you an insight into his editorial work. Michiel has been an editorial board member of the Journal of Implementation and Replication Studies in Mathematics Education, and also a board member of the Dutch Association for the Development of Primary Mathematics Education. Here is a very short career path, but now we will learn a bit more. We are moving forward and coming into the first part of questions, which we are calling your current work as mathematics education researcher. So we began with a question on motivation. So what motivated you to become a mathematics education researcher?
That's a very interesting question, which led me to do some soul searching. Well, I know why I'm doing it now, but what made me become it in the first place? And it was rather pragmatic why I became it at first. I had been studying mathematics and psychology, and I had been very much interested in doing research, but I didn't know for sure in which direction I want to go. If I want to stay in psychology, or if I wanted to go more towards a psychometrical approach into that, so the mathematical methods used in psychology, or whether I want to do something in education. So I was really at that time looking around what kind of projects are available to pursue a PhD in. And then I stumbled upon an opening, and that opening was in primary mathematics education, on the subject that in the end became my PhD thesis, so on the classroom assessment in that area. So it was a very, I had several interests, and I was looking for what was available at the time. But when I had started, suddenly everything fell into place. I realized this is what I've been what I've always been preparing myself for. For instance, in psychology, I always focused on developmental psychology and cognitive psychology. And in mathematics, I did it because I was always told that I was good at it. So that was why I thought, oh, let's also study it. And then maybe I can become a secondary school teacher. But I never wanted to be a secondary school teacher. And then suddenly, while working on primary mathematics and thinking about how children develop their thinking, and thinking how does mathematics, or what does mathematics entail, what do they need it for, and how can we help them to get there? And then suddenly everything fitted, and I think already from my first week when I started, or I think already from my my job interview, I thought this is it. This will be my job for well.
Yes, and I think it's thank you for sharing that you actually are honest. I had two interest, psychology and mathematics. At the same time, you also sharing with us that there are ways of combining it, and then seeing the both ways, both interest as a part of your motivation to become or work as mathematics education researcher. And of course, it might not be very obvious at the beginning, but of course there is also a pragmatic part of it, as you said, to have a PhD position somewhere. You cannot just sit at home and do your projects, so you need to have a job and be in an environment. So thank you for sharing that. That two interests can lead the career path the way it did for you. So we already began a bit on that, Michiel, on your area of research. We already heard a couple of times, I would say, a keywords about your research. But please tell us shortly about the area of research you are conducting.
Yeah, so the educational sector that I'm focusing on mostly is primary education. And of course, that is still very broad as a focus. Within that, well, I have been doing most of my work related to questions about assessment within mathematics, well, within primary mathematics education, and then mostly focused on teachers' practices and trying to assist teachers or work with teachers to find out how we could improve that if need be. And interest, well, that was my PhD was about that, and afterwards I've worked with many colleagues in different countries and in different domains on this same subject. But in that work, rather shortly after I started working on that, so when I started my PhD already, as I just told, I didn't come from education, so I didn't know much about, well, I knew as a student I had been in primary education, but I didn't know anything about, well, how teachers were prepared or why they did things that they did and how they use the curriculum in that and which choices they make. So I had to, from the first start as a mathematics education researcher, I had to learn a lot, not so much about mathematics or not so much about research, but about the mathematics education research part. So what are the methodologies of doing that this mathematics education research, but also what is mathematics education actually about? And so I had to learn a lot about about the curriculum and about learning trajectories or teaching trajectories and a combination of learning and teaching trajectories, about didactical methods, about the Dutch, the famous Dutch theory about mathematics education, realistic mathematics education, what is actually in that, what ideas about didactics are in that theory and how are they translated into practice. So to go from, so why am I telling this, is that I rather quickly realized that think about assessment, to think about how can you get an idea about what your students know and do not know and how they are thinking. Sure, you can neglect everything about what comes before and afterwards, but then you're just looking at one point in time and you're not actually doing something actionable or doing something. So I quickly realized and I learned that you actually need to have an overview of the domain you're working in and of the learning and teaching trajectory to be able to assist students to work towards particular learning goals, or to think about, oh, I see that they are not understanding something now. What can I do to assist them to understand that? Or where should I move in the learning trajectory or the learning landscape to be able to help them? So that as an explanation why, my research into assessment was actually very much already linked to more learning trajectory work. I wasn't investigating learning trajectories, but they were very important in the work on assessment. So after or during my time as an assessment in mathematics education researcher, I kind of diverted towards something more in the, let's say, at the borders of the primary education learning trajectories, which were focused a little bit more on higher order thinking in mathematics education. And at that time, what we of course, by the way, always when I say I'm also referring to all the colleagues that I work with, my supervisors, there's no work in research that you do alone. So allow me to say I, but know that I mean we. So our work was at that time we defined higher order thinking as a type of thinking that students display that you would not expect from them, I'm going to say normally, but at their age or development level, but which could be, if they are a couple of years later and have had more education, then it would not be considered higher order thinking. So what we did then was interesting. We looked at how particular subjects or like algebra or graphical reasoning or probability, how these subjects, which in the Netherlands are not part of the primary curriculum, how we could already prepare students in grade 5 of primary school, so at 11 years old approximately, 10, 11 years old, how we could already prepare them for what they would encounter later on. So we kind of took we made the learning trajectory of primary school a little bit longer, to include parts of secondary school, but not, as I'm saying it now, not parts of the secondary school curriculum, but more looking at what is the type of thinking that we can expect primary school students to have in these mathematical subjects, which can help them probably later to better understand, when they are going to learn about specific procedures within these subjects. So learning, that's kind of an extension of this learning trajectory focus. So this was what my postdoc period was mostly about. And during this time as a postdoc, I started working at this primary school teacher education institute. So my attention shifted also a little bit from only primary school teachers and primary school students to pre-service teachers as learners. And at that time, that's what I'm still working on a lot, is also thinking about how are they actually learning, about learning trajectories, and how do they use that to shape their own teaching in primary
practices.
actual practice.
Mm.
And so that's, well, so I said assessment was one thing. Well, learning trajectories as a way of thinking for assessment, but also for shaping, well, pre-service teachers' practice, and also primary school teacher in-service teachers' practice. And this last 2 years, I've been adding a little bit to that of, or last 3 years, on the mathematical attitude of students, of teachers, and of teacher educators. So to look at how do these people, or how do we perceive mathematics, and where do we see mathematics? So to have a kind of, we would hope that the mathematical would be rather positive, so that you say, if you encounter mathematics somewhere or something related to mathematics, that you do not become anxious, that you actually appreciate it, or that you can see the beauty of mathematics, and that you can recognize it in the world. And that well, I've been working much more on that subject lately, also with the idea that is very much underlying everything that we are trying to do. This, the learning of students, the learning of pre-service teachers, the learning of in-service teachers, everything also hinges on a positive attitude towards the subject.
Thank you, Michiel. When you say primary school or primary education, I know you already mentioned grade 5, children 10, 11. So per definition, the Dutch system, what is the span for the primary? Because I do have my way of thinking. Primary is between this and this, but maybe some of those who are listening thinking, okay, what is the age span? What is the context?
So in the Netherlands, primary school starts at 4 years of age and ends at 12.
Okay.
So from kindergarten, and then grade 1 until 6.
Yes, and so this is age 4 to 12. Yes. Yep. So I just a small comment, because I think sometimes it's very important to add in this very obvious thing, because in Sweden, I would say primary education is from age of 7, because we have kindergarten, and then you have preschool class at age 6, and then you begin primary school. So thank you for this short answer, but actually gives also, okay, so this is the Dutch system, and that's, I think, is very important to get
maybe
that.
In addition to that, also primary school teachers, they are generalists, so they are not subject.
They are not just teaching one subject, yes, and that is, I think, case in many countries, at least in Sweden too. At a later stage, they are becoming teachers of 2, 3 subjects, but at the beginning of primary school, they are teaching all. So thank you. So let's move to the next part. Is link it to you already said a bit about the research you are conducting now, which is actually linked to the subject of mathematics and how people are perceiving it, how we do it. Yeah, maybe emotions and feelings around it and so on. That is where the depth of your current research goes into. But what do you enjoy the most about your work? Now, when we know what you are doing as a researcher and also as a teacher at the teacher education. So what do you enjoy the most?
Well, no, do I have to give one answer, or can I give more than one answer?
You are very welcome to give us more than one answer. Okay. We already hear that you do enjoy what you are doing, but give us a little more specifics about it.
So there are different aspects to the work that I like a lot. So there's the part of getting to work with children that are learning, with teachers that are learning, and working to assist or to help students to learn, with adult learners or pre-service teachers, with colleagues in research or in teacher education, or in both, with with people from the administration, so from the ministry or the inspectorate of education, with people from university. Well, so in my work, or in the work as a mathematics education researcher, at least as I am, as I perceive it, you are working in a very diverse environment with, I actually didn't even mention parents or other people around children. You are, or I am in contact with all these different people, almost every day. And that makes that my days are never the same. Well, in what they look alike is that I encounter all kinds of different people during a day, and that makes it for me very enjoyable, because I get to see all these different viewpoints and all these different ideas from different people. So that's one thing, the diversity both of the people I work with and the ways that my days are organized. But what I also enjoy is the thing that we do. So the research focus, so to really try to understand how things work, and in these, well, with these diverse actors that I'm working with, always trying to figure out how do things work, how can we learn something about what we're doing, and what could we do better maybe. And that also means that I really like to sometimes have just my computer and me and something to read or something to write without any distractions. I also really like to have that sometimes my job is to just think and sit.
Yeah. And actually what you are saying in regards to this working with many people and many partnerships, both the children in school and the teachers and the pre-service teachers and that the parents and your colleagues is actually linked to what you said a few minutes ago about when I refer to I work with, you actually mean your colleagues, the teams you are working with, and that as you said it now also includes the students, the parents, the maybe policymakers, those who are making decisions in a town, in a school, the principals and so on. And actually that is, I think, is a nice link, and also an insight for a young researcher, so maybe a senior researchers, to listen to it, that research is a collective process. I also strongly believe that we get in depth with things by working collaboratively with colleagues and also with those who are the subject or objects of the research we are conducting at the end.
ERME does not, well, the 3 C's of ERME did not
no,
spring to life for nothing. They are
yes, exactly. So yes, that is a beautiful link to the 3 C's. And the 3 C's, for those who listen and think, oh, what is the 3 C's? Yes, we can remind them. One is the communication.
That's what we're doing now, right? And collaboration, yes, and cooperation.
And cooperation, exactly. That's exactly what we're doing and aiming for all the time in the everyday work of the society. So from the what we enjoy to do to what you might enjoy the least, what is less fun?
Yeah, these are often related to each other. So and maybe almost the same. So, but I really enjoy the diversity of my work. But due to the diversity, my days can really overflow with meetings, with interviews, with school visits, with teaching, with trying to find time to do also what I mentioned last, was to have some time between me and my computer to think or to write or to read. Trying to do all this, that's I don't enjoy to having no, I don't really enjoy having an overfull calendar. And that's but in a way that's saying I really like what I'm doing, so I try to put as much work into a day that I can. But sometimes that overflows towards parts of the day that you want to be spent with your family or doing other things. So.
And I think this is very important. You mentioned that there are points at the moments that everything is enjoyable with the work, but sometimes is overwhelming, and we need also to say, yes, it is enjoyable, but we are also humans, and we love what we do. However, there's
maybe there's one. So as I said, I enjoy many of the things, but there's also the thing of being let's call me between junior and senior researcher, but really as a junior researcher, you want to say yes to everything. At least that was my. So if someone asks you, would you maybe be interested to serve on a board of an association? Well, sure, interesting. Do you want to participate in this committee? Oh, yes, sure, interesting. Do you want to review these papers? Yes, interesting, for sure. Do you want to organize this conference? Yeah, that I like that. Do you want to come? Okay, yeah, I can do that too. So, you, in a way of trying to kind of shape your future, but also shape that you. I remember as a PhD student, I was bored at days. I was sitting at my computer alone in my office. And after sitting there for 8 hours, I thought, what did I do today? I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't have lunch. But I was just interacting with my computer. So from there to like these days that are full with other things, I felt the need to kind of grasp opportunities. But by grasping opportunities, I was getting used to saying yes to everything. And so I had to learn to say no sometimes, or to say, no, well, not now, or
yeah, and that is also an important thing, which actually is bringing us forward to the second part of the interview, which we slowly can move into that with learn to say no, thank you, which is also a skill, I would say, which most of us needs to work and develop. So with that said, let us move to base on your experience part, which we call as part 2, where we go to, as you said, you see yourself in between the junior and the senior research in math education, but all that is based on your experience. So which advice was or would have been helpful for you at the beginning of your career? What would you wish to hear or get as advice?
Well, let's say what was helpful for me was the advice to go out, go out and meet people, and I mean professionally. To go to conferences, to go to workshops, to go and visit other researchers, or go into the field if you consider the field educational practice in your country too. In a way, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, please go.
In a way that made me better understand, the world of mathematics education research, but also better to understand the world of school mathematics education. And that, at least for me, that was helpful advice and also helpful support, that I could actually go to conferences and to meet people, to see different types of conferences, different types of workshops, or summer schools, or these environments in which you meet other PhD researchers or more senior researchers that you can really learn from, a bit like you are doing now, by interviewing these board members, by getting to know their path, their career path. Well, some have a really clear career path, and others have a very diverse, that you can see, well, there are many possibilities of,
Yes.
well, of ending up somewhere which you did maybe not expect when you started, that you thought, well, we'll see where we end up. And so that's, for me, that was helpful, the advice for me, but I'm not sure that at this like the current status of the world, I spent I spent a lot of time in airplanes, for instance. So, and now, of course, meetings or well, interviews or conference, you take a little bit more into consideration, at least than I did 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. What does this? How does this affect, well, the climate, or well, the and how inclusive or open are these meetings actually for everyone? And that's something that makes me a little bit doubt whether I would now also say to new PhD researchers, or to young, let's young in a sense of research career-wise, researchers, go everywhere. I would maybe reconsider that, but still I would give the advice: meet people to exchange, the communication and the collaboration, the cooperation part. Well, it's by also explaining your ideas to other people, and hearing their ideas, and trying to understand, and trying to get their the reference framework. Where do their ideas come from? How are the different countries organized? By due to, or thanks to going to all these different countries, you encounter people from all over the world with all these different educational contexts and different ways of organizing their curriculum, but also organizing their education research. And that for me, now that I'm thinking again, because I thought before about this, but now I'm thinking again, I think I would still advise young researchers, within their possibilities, within, of course, well, their own wishes, to as much as possible look up other people.
Yes, which would also mean that what you mentioned a bit earlier, that meeting with the community is important in your research you do now with all the partners, but it's also important to learn from the other research environments, and that we do at conferences or network meeting, and that is the fact. That is where you gather people from different contexts, on different traditions, and there is a whole buffet of opportunities to learn more, and as you said. But there's also other part which is important to consider in relation to what is possible from the different points. So. Another question towards based on the experience you already have now, what is one advice or suggestion you always give to postgraduate students, young researchers, those you meet that might just begun the PhD? What is the one advice you think is important to give?
And this is for people that work with me, or that I encounter locally, I would say, or well, they can be.
You can decide it yourself if that is a locally, or those you meet globally on a conference.
No. In this, my answer now is focused on so close new colleagues. I give a very basic advice, which is to read. Yeah. To read.
And it is little how you began with that. You came with an interest in psychology, interest in mathematics, and you needed to, and then you gave a very long list of things you did deepen your knowledge in, and that is by reading, isn't it?
I don't think that reading is the solution to everything, but reading.
No, but you need that too.
It's a very important way, and I mean, reading, sure, international research literature that is from, well, the current days or from before, as many years before you want, but that also means curriculum documents of your country.
Yes, yes.
Reports about your country or international reports. I think those to have these different perspectives upon the field you're working in, or at least to be knowledgeable of them and to know, well, different theoretical frameworks, to interpret the findings, that makes that you can understand better your own work, but also understand better other people's work.
Yes, yes.
But so, often, sure, people that have done their masters in education or in mathematics education or in mathematics or they have read, but it's different to read as a researcher than to read as a student.
Thank you. And in the simplicity of the advice is a complexity. You just explained it to us. It's not just go home and read. There's an action behind the reading, or thoughts behind the reading, or a critical perspective or critical thinking or behind the reading, and then it has different purposes. So thank you, Michiel, for this advice. And that brings us actually from reading to advice of reading to a smoothly into where we actually ask during our interviews to share 3 articles or books that you think from your experience, from your field of research, that young researchers or every researchers in mathematics education should have read, and tell us 1 or 2 sentences about why.
Yeah, I think this is an impossible question, but I will try to. Well, I made a selection of 3, but
yes,
there is much more. But in this selection, I kind of neglected the history before the year 2000, just because but at first I wanted to select things from earlier, but I thought, well, let's try and make it a little bit more current.
Yes.
But, well, this advice that I just gave about reading, also, I really think reading, well, what we would call old articles or books is very useful, because everything, no, not everything, but many things have already been done and thought about that we all neglect sometimes. Well, that being said, I chose 2 articles in 1 book. So the 2 articles are by authors from the United States of America. One is by Ellen Schoenfeld, and it's a 2014 article in Educational Researcher, and the title is "What Makes for Powerful Classrooms and How Can We Support Teachers in Creating Them?" Research and practice, and they're productively intertwined. And why I chose this article is not so much about this specific article. It's mostly about the work that Ellen Schoenfeld has been doing for his entire career, but the last 15 years in developing the teaching for robust understanding framework of, well, how can you actually look at mathematics teaching in a way that, well, that makes for powerful classrooms. Which are the things that you have to think about? How can you support teachers in doing that? What does that lead to in students and children's utterance? What they do. So that's so I chose this one because this is a kind of an overview article, and it's very much. It takes mathematics. Mathematics plays the centerpiece. So it's all about. So it's about mathematics education, but in the 3 things that I chose, within the 2 words mathematics education. Sure, we want students to learn about mathematics, but it's learning about mathematics, and that there are specific ways in mathematics education for how to teach and learn mathematics, and that it's not something that is always inspired or let's say it doesn't always follow strictly from educational psychology or cognitive psychology to say, well, these general principles, they are applied directly into mathematics. No, there are specific ways of teaching and learning in mathematics. That's why I chose, among other, this one. The second one is by Jer Comfrey and colleagues. And that's, well, I already mentioned that I was interested in learning trajectories. Well, that's one of her articles about learning trajectories, a framework for connecting standards with curriculum. That was in ZEM, published also in 2014, if I have my dates correctly. And this describes how working or developing learning trajectories, so research-based learning trajectories, how that works actually. So how can you approach that? How do you can you actually get research-based learning trajectory? Which are the steps from very small very small start and analysis of the mathematics needed and the support needed to, well, little by little expanding it to lesson series, to modules, to years, to bigger, well, that it grows gradually, not automatically, but that it's really a big enterprise, a research enterprise, to actually get to good learning trajectories. And then the third one is a book, and that's a book by a Dutch author, actually my supervisor of my PhD, Marja van den Heuvel-Panhuizen. I have the book here. I brought it. It's about children learn mathematics. I will give the reference later. It's from 2001, so it's just on the verge of the 2000s. But it's actually the result of a learning trajectory research, and this book is about a specific learning teaching trajectory with attainment targets for calculation with whole numbers in primary school, and it gives a very nice overview actually of how the realistic mathematics education ideas can be applied to this whole number, well, let's say arithmetic in primary school, and which models and which goals can be linked in between it, and how teachers can support this. So I really, well, these three books, or these two articles in this book, I think they are important to read, and my one or two sentences were much more. I'm sorry for that.
But do not worry. Thank you very much, Michiel. I know this is a difficult question. However, it also gives us who are listening to your story and your motivation for choosing those books, also gives us, oh, this is something very interesting. Let's see that article. So it's just not only about because it is not about they are the three best, but they are the three that you are selecting for a reason, which you well explained it. So it's not any hierarchical order on anything, but that also gives us also I think great links to the work you have been doing, but also to your work that is also things you have done at the beginning of your career, and the book from 2001 might be part of it, what you read quite early on would be my guess, and so on. And I think also that you share with us that it's important to look actually also back and see, read things that have been published for 50 years ago, which are still a lot to learn from, because the research done then been great in many ways, even if that was in different circumstances and different contexts. So thank you for sharing that. So we go to the things regarding a future a bit. And this is also a kind of question that we don't know answer to, but we might have ideas and thoughts about. So in your opinion, what are the key topics and challenges for the future research in education, and especially mathematics education?
I think there are well, one of the things I already mentioned while talking about this conference as well is the well, let's say the equity, diversity, and inclusion part. There are that's something that I think is one of the key will be one of the, or is, I don't know, is one of the key topics and challenges for mathematics education. How do we take into account, or how do we ensure that our teaching and our way of doing research into mathematics teaching, that we do not only focus on the dominant stories, that we also show the other stories, and that there is space for those stories, for the ideas that of every, well, I would say of everyone, that everyone's ideas can be somewhere in their identity, in their being. That is something that is kind of, well, not starting, but that is seeping through, well, both research and education. But I think that is will be one of the focal points. Well, how do actually our methods, our didactics, our research methods, how do they allow for this? So I think that's something very important and very. I expect that to become. It's already growing in importance, but I think it will continue.
Yes, thank you very much. And I can also, by you telling that, actually also link back to listen to the interview with Francesca from Italy we have published before your interview, where Francesca also is actually, in regards to this question, lifting also a question about a rhetorical question, but also an ethical question in regard to the methods we are using in the research, and what we actually, with those methodologies later, whose voices are visible, and how this contribute to equality or inequality. And in regards to the USA. So for those who are listening, please go back also and hear on Francesca, because here are very clear links in the way you are thinking about the future and the challenges for the research in education, but also in math education. So thank you, Michiel, for this.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, absolutely, please.
Before we go to the biggest takeaway.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the well, one of the big discussions in the Netherlands, but everywhere in the world, at times it comes back, and there are waves of like attention towards for basic skills or more problem solving, right? There's this more procedural, more conceptual focus in well, mathematics education, or in education in general. And that's something that in the Netherlands now, for the last 2 years, there's a big focus on basic skills. That's what the politicians are saying, and people in practice are saying, but no one actually knows what these basic skills are.
I was about to ask you, what is behind the definition of basic skills? Because I search in my head, is like, what might that be? So what is it?
Yeah, so we've been looking into that, or we are looking into that. It's one of the things in this national center we're doing as well. But is that for some people, the basic skills in mathematics are, well, are arithmetic, so the 4 basic operations and being able to do them. But for other people, basic skills in mathematics means to be numerate, so to be able to see mathematics, to be able to apply mathematics to
use it.
Situations in the world. So then so that's, well, there's like every basic skills is everything, or basic skills is only the 4 basic operations. So there's a big difference between what people consider it to be. But also then, we already are not agreeing on what it is, but then if you're talking about how should you teach them, then people are also completely opposing views. And why I was mentioning this now is that with this focus on, well, let's say focus on equity, is that the way you define it does not always, it doesn't the way you defined it doesn't plead directly for one way or another on how to teach it. But it does give some hints onto, well, what you should teach, but not especially how. But that that there are, how can I phrase this correctly? That completely opposing views on how to teach basic skills, they can have this exact same goal. So to have the goal of helping students, for instance, to master these 4 basic operations, with the idea that if you master them, everyone should master them, because then you get a more equal preparation for
whatever,
for education, for the world, for maybe your job. But that some would say, no, to teach that you need to take into account the background of their of students, and that everyone agrees. But then some will say, no, to teach that correctly, you have to teach it by drill and practice, because because by drill and practice, you know that they will learn these operations in the end. And then there are the completely opposing views that will say, no, sure, you must do some drill and practice, but actually to help all students to use these operations, they need to know why. So they need to know where to apply it, and they need to come from some situation which can be within mathematics or outside mathematics, and that they know, well, mathematics is actually a tool to solve situations. And that these completely opposing views, they can also say, no, we are actually working on equal chances for everyone, because those that say we need to have this procedural focus will say it's by taking away, for instance, language or situations about daily life which students did not encounter, that makes it more a better teaching situation. A more equal teaching situation, whereas the other view I just described about using daily life and etc., they will say, well, it's a more equal chances for everyone, because within education we actually provide situations that maybe people or students or children did not encounter elsewhere. But if we do not provide it in education, they will not see it anywhere. So
yes.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying this. Well, this is just the equal chances thing, but to work towards this equity, these are research questions actually. Does this actually lead to more equal chances, or how do students develop their understanding or their performance on these particular subjects? And these are questions that we do not have answers to yet. These are just opposing views based on insights that people gathered from their practice, but they are not yet well researched, I think. So sorry for elaborating so much, but I think this is important to have a sort of an example of that. It's not that that it's not completely straightforward how you should teach something to get equal opportunities.
Yes, I think by explaining it more in depth with concrete examples, you also are raising important challenges in the future research. So thank you for this example. That moves us to our last part, and that is something what we call a little from the private corner. We call that a little and here we have a question that is, how do you spend your time outside work? You also said at the beginning that is nice and fun and a lot, you enjoy your work, but you also have a life outside. So how do you spend your time outside work?
Well, most of the time I spend it with my family, so my wife and 3 children, and 1 on the way in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I really like to spend time with them. And well, what do we do? Yes, I would say what families do. So we play together. We go out together. We eat together. We do things together very much. Otherwise, I do have one hobby. Something that I've been doing for almost my entire life is play football, or well, soccer for the American viewers, with friends. So I have every week I have a training with them, and then every weekend we have a match. So that's something I really enjoy, and it's with a group of friends, and we've been one team for over 20 years now.
Wow,
so,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so
that's
also my social. Sorry, yeah.
It's a continuity to have a team of friends playing for so many years. Yes.
So that, and well, then most of my free time is consumed.
Yes.
with family and with friends.
Yeah, and it's consumed in a good way, I would say. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. We also have a question that was a surprise question. We have not asked you to prepare that, but we were curious to know when was the last time you did something for the first time? So can be at work, can be private, something, okay, now I did this first time in my life. Do you have something you can share with us of that kind of insight? It cannot be playing football or soccer, because you've done that for the last 20 years.
I really have to think about this. It's a good question.
If I might think myself, I would say from what you said a couple of minutes ago is actually that surprisingly you can get a big fundings from the National Research Fund. That would be something you did for the first time, or did I understand that correct? Was the first time you got the big funds from the National Research?
Yes, yeah, sure, yeah. I was thinking more small thing, more.
Yeah, small thing.
Because in a way, this grant thing is like every, well, not really, but it's like every grant, right? You have that's something. It's just the way and the size, maybe. Yeah, well, but it is related to that, but it's actually something in the future, but in the very near future.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't dress like this for you, actually. I dressed like this because this afternoon there's the festive opening of this national center.
Oh, wow.
And there will be many people, of course, but there will also be the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Education will be there. So I expect, I'm not sure because we're with many, but I expect that this afternoon that this will be the first time for me to shake hands with the minister.
Congratulations! We are. I hope that will happen, because that is can be something good to meet the people behind all the decision makings and all the things they are doing on the political level. So.
So but it didn't happen yet, so it's not really an answer to the question.
But we can take that on the next time we meet on a conference and ask, was that the first time that happened, that you shake a hand with a minister? It might be, no, I did already 5 different times. So thank you for sharing that. That brings us to a last question, or maybe last opportunity time for a comment, and is in regards to the young researchers community. Is there anything else you have shared with us? A lot of your about your career path, about your experience, about your things about the future, but is there anything else you would like to share with the young researchers community?
Yes, is that I'm very happy that the YERME community exists. It's also one of the reasons I think, like I said, I did many things, I said yes to many things, but one of them was to, as a young researcher, at my first YERME, I talked to some people, among others, Susanne Prediger, but who at the time was in the ERME board, and then I could serve on the IPC of YERME 10 in Dublin, and that for me was the like well, it was as a young researcher, I was asked for that, and that was for me the first time to participate in such a setting with in such a committee, to meet these people, and to that was for me the start in this international organization that ERME is, but of which YERME is, well, for young researchers, are very nice. I really like the young researcher days at CERME. I have been, so for me, this, what I would like to share with the community is, well, and with you, with you, thank you for keeping it alive and for making it stronger, but also for the other people in it. Well, use it, use it to encounter people, to get new insights, to open doors, or to find doors that you think, no, I do not want to go there, and to collaborate with people. That's really something that I would like to share, which I also said was something that I enjoyed doing. I think that's really for me the most important part of the work, is to work with other people, and that so do that and continue.
Yes, thank you, Michiel. And I would like to add as one of the closing phrases that the YERME community for the young researchers exist in a collaboration between the young researchers who are willing to contribute and network with each other, but also with support of the senior community in the European research society in math education, because there is a correlation and collaboration with that. Things are not working if they are isolated. It always has to be a continuity of sharing and caring for each other in the community. So with that said, and as a last word, I would like to thank you very much for your time, that you could find a time and a slot in your calendar to conduct the interview. I also would like to say thank you on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of the YERME representative in the board, Dylan and Luca. So thank you, Michiel, for being here with us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.